Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Hotfix 6.0 free for Total War Warhammer free Immortal Empires, which is available right now as an opt-in beta. I wonder what kind of bugs this one will bring, because Creative Assembly says the following. Their aim is to release this as part of our first hotfix in the new year, currently scheduled for late January. This makes sense because today was probably the last day that Creative Assembly had anyone in the office before their holiday vacation. This is one of the problems with the fact that they released Omens of Destruction in December. That, yeah, patches or DLC come out with issues. They don't have time to fix those issues because they're going on vacation. So they kind of had to rush this in the last moment. I'm sure there was some crunch right here in the last moment to at least get this out, this beta available out. This is going to nerf Skulltaker into the ground in a lot of ways, though there are still ways you can abuse Skulltaker, and I think just the mechanics of him don't necessarily work that well. So I think we do need like a 6.1 patch to address issues with Gorbad, to address issues with Skulltaker, to address issues with Khorne in general. And he has Gorbad issues because he does have problems. But anyway, so adjusted Blood Toast and Disciple Forces so they no longer benefit from the demonic reforging chance. So effectively, this is a major nerf to Blood Toast, not just for Skulltaker, but for Khorne in general, because all Khorne lords do have demonic reforging. And what this means is you won't be able to do what you can do right now in 6.02, which is spawn Blood Toast. It doesn't matter if you lose the battle because you have such a high demonic reforging chance that you might lose an entire army, and then that army is at full strength. It's basically vampire counts, or vampire coast, far less with vampire coast, but it's basically how vampire counts just go from one battle to another, recover very easily. This was way worse for Blood Toast. So they still have healing, keep in mind that. There's still Cloak of Skulls effects, they still heal those Blood Toasts. You just won't be able to get the healing and reforging in your units if you lose them in battle. So you gotta be careful about that. Adjust the effects of the Cloak of Skulls so that they now only apply when Skulltaker himself defeats a lord. This was the most broken aspect about it, because quite a few of the effects, be it the campaign movement range, the healing, even summoning a Blood Toast, those would all apply whenever any army defeated a lord. Now, another problem was what counted as a lord, because you could have a garrison leader counting as a lord. I mean, they are technically a lord from a gameplay perspective. I imagine that's still going to be a case. But the fact you could do that, even with a garrison, it means you could set a gameplay loop where you literally had infinite healing, infinite movement range, infinite Blood Toast constantly. Now, you will still be able to do some of that, to be sure, but it's just being nerfed. Then, when playing as Skulltaker, the Legendary Lord 2x bonus for Champion's Essence will now only be applied once after defeating a champion battle. The bonus will no longer stack. So what they're really trying to do here is address what Legend of Total War brought up, what I also mentioned in a video based on what Legend did, is that you could set up a situation as Skulltaker with Marcus Wolfhard, with Albric, with Jan Bo, with Gorok, where you just left one settlement surrounded by Blood Toasts and armies that would just constantly sack that, and when a Legendary Lord showed up, they would gain more champions, you would gain more champions essence. So that 2x bonus is not going to apply. There are still ways you can cheese that, to be sure, in a significant fashion, but it does seem that they're trying to reduce that to some extent. I do think that CA shouldn't be worried too much about fixing extreme cheeses, because you have to go out of your way to do that. They just have to fix things that happen naturally in a campaign. So, defeating Legendary Lords naturally is making, sensical for them to address that. It's not really sensical to address the situation where someone is abusing the fact that you can leave a faction with one settlement in a province and just have that faction constantly spawn a lord with Champion's Essence, and you gain advantage of that. Maybe they should fix that, to be sure, because it is an exploit, but look, that is something you have to deliberately go out of your way to do. I think they should prioritize things that happen in a natural campaign, not stuff like that, right? Because there's so many things like that, like settlement trading, diplomacy bullshit, and there's a lot of things that I think they should prioritize fixing and improving on that aren't just like a case, oh, I really know the game, I know every nook and cranny, and I know how to exploit the crap out of it. If you decide to play like that, that's one thing. What I think is important is they have a situation on Journey Lords and Races where you can have a good time when you're playing normally, and you also have a good amount of strength when you're playing normally. The problem I see with this, though, is that with reducing Champion's Essence once you defeat a Legendary Lord once, this may incentivize people to seek out more cheesy ways of getting Champion's Essence, because reducing Champion's Essence means that your campaign is slower. If your campaign is slower, it's not more challenging, it's just grindy. That's one of the reasons people use cheese, because, yeah, the campaign is not interesting after X turns, so let's reduce the number of turns we have to engage in this bullshit. Blood Toasts now increase the cost of blood for the Blood God occupation option while they're on the map. This means that the more active blood toasts there are, the more costly it becomes to create new blood toasts. This is very much needed, and the reason this is very much needed is because with any Khorne campaign, you could reach a stage in your campaign, like turn 20 or so, where you could just constantly and infinitely summon blood toasts, because you would gain so much skulls, even from battles without getting skulls from raising settlements, that you would just be constantly able to create infinite blood toasts. Now, it's worth pointing out, Skulltaker still does have an effect to summon blood toasts through defeating a lord. I do think they should fix the idea that, a garrison leader is a lord. That is a problem, though we gotta talk about the idea that a lot of Skulltaker's benefits only apply when you defeat a lord, because there might be situations where you don't have lords and you're not getting benefits and that campaign is slower, and that's not especially great. But here's the thing, this doesn't address the fact that both Skulltaker and Arbol can summon infinite number of blood toasts for certain mechanics. For Skulltaker, it's filling up a tree. For Arbol, it's one of the skills that he has access to. So I think the entire Cloak of Skulls needs to be reworked. This is a band-aid. Like, don't read on this anything more than just them trying to band-aid the issue. The actual fixes need more work, and I certainly hope they don't stop there. Reduce the XP gain bonus from Cloak of Skulls from 25-50% to 20-40%. This will mean nothing. I personally have never bothered with that skill, and I could still get to like level 50 by turn 20. Granted, now that I can no longer have infinite movement range, that might slow it down somewhat. That was the reason you could get a lot of experience. All the same. And then fix various issues in the game that I would say is pretty solid. So fix a crash, fix a potential crash, fix various crashes. And then a pretty nice benefit for ogres. Ogre camps now only take 3 turns to be redeployed instead of 5. That is very useful, because 5 turns is a lot, 3 turns is manageable. I probably reduce it to 2 turns personally, or have technology to allow me to reduce it to 2 turns, or maybe some camp building to, allow me to do that. Though I think you should have a cost, and not a meat cost. I mean a literal gold cost. That might be escalating the more you do it, if you want to do it instantly. I think that would be a better situation, because you get to a point in a campaign where, you might just want to redeploy camps constantly. And it can be tedious waiting for 3 turns. And that would be about it. Various other minor things. So I do think that CA did have to address this. I think it's good that they've decided to address this before they went on their vacation, because this was ridiculously stupid. I mean, I'm sorry, this was completely broken. This is more sensical, especially the most important thing I would say that exists here is this right here. The fact that you no longer get the healing, the summoned blood toast, the movement range, when you're just defeating any army, any of your armies, including blood toast, when you're the benefits of the Cloak of Skulls when you're doing that. That is arguably the most important thing, and it is going to have a cascading effect on everything else. The other things may not necessarily seem like there are other things, but this is really going to pump the brakes on Skulltaker, and he's going to have a more regular campaign just simply because of this. Because, I imagine he could still get a lot of movement range if you played things in a certain way, to be sure, but you're not going to have a situation where it's like you just play a campaign in Skulltaker and you can destroy an entire campaign map and get a million blood toasts with no real stopping it, just because you can always replenish your movement through some of your armies. If you set up a situation where some of your armies are fighting lords each turn and constantly replenishing your movement reach. I do think that the playstyle of movement reach, healing, etc. is still going to be viable. What I would say, they really should have addressed some of the issues with the starting position and Lustria. I understand terraining is not necessarily something that's easy to do. I get that, but Lustria sucks. Like, just the jungle situation sucks. So I think the problem with Skulltaker is that he's in this situation where he's either really good or he's really shit. And that's kind of the problem, by the way, that Scarbrand had. Now, Scarbrand is in a much better reasonable situation right now because of the Corn rework, believe it or not. I think Scarbrand does work very well, but he's not like, ridiculously stupid, right? Where you can either have a meaningless Legendary Lord that accomplishes squad because you have no money, or you have a Legendary Lord that burns the entire campaign map in turns. That's what Scarbrand could do. And they found that middle ground, I feel, with Scarbrand. They do have some work to do with regards to Skulltaker. Quasine here, signing out. Stay tuned for more.